Greetings, fellow Obsidizens of the vast Obsidian community. Welcome to another video in the Obsidian for Noobs video series, featuring tutorials, tips, and tools for new users of the Obsidian personal knowledge management software. Today's video is the first video in a three-part series entitled Getting Started with Obsidian, a guide for absolute beginners. It's intended for people who are entirely new to Obsidian, those who have only just started using it or are considering using it. This first video in the series contains an introduction to the series where I'll define some basic terms and discuss what happens when you first run Obsidian. And then we'll move on to an overview of the Obsidian User Interface, or UI. There is much talk about Obsidian's steep learning curve, and that claim is very true. Obsidian does indeed have a steep learning curve, but it is steep only because Obsidian offers many features and options. The good news is that it is not necessary to understand all those features and options in order to be able to use Obsidian effectively and productively. In fact, you can begin to use Obsidian very productively after learning only the barest minimum about it. In planning this video series, I gave a great deal of thought to the question, what is the absolute least information that a new Obsidian user would need to know in order to be able to use Obsidian to accomplish real-world tasks and projects? The answer turned out to be surprisingly simple. A new Obsidian user needs to know only 4 things in order to be fully functional with Obsidian. Let's see what they are. As you see on screen, there are really only 4 things you need to learn in order to be able to use Obsidian productively. And you only need to learn a small portion of each of these 4 things. The first one is the user interface, or UI. And you only need to learn about its most basic parts. The second thing you need to know about are notes. And again, only the basics. Then comes Markdown, and only a few of the actual situations using Markdown are necessary to get started with it. Finally, links, and once again, you only need to know the most basic information about links in order to use them effectively and productively. Of course, there is much more to Obsidian than these 4 simple concepts, but everything else beyond these 4 topics is intermediate or advanced level stuff. Without a doubt, the more advanced topics make working with Obsidian more effective, more attractive, and more fun, but none of them are necessary in order to use Obsidian. When I first decided to try Obsidian, I began watching videos on YouTube, but in many cases, I was instantly lost because the presenters were using terminology I didn't know. What is a vault, I wondered? And they were bouncing around all over the screen, making things happen in a way that left me impressed, but also mystified. In this video series, I am not going to assume that you have any Obsidian knowledge whatsoever. And so, with that approach in mind, let's start with some basic definitions. And please realize that each of these concepts will be explained in greater detail in the particular video that relates to them as we get to it. All right, the first term to define is vault. The word vault refers to all the files and folders that collectively comprise a single Obsidian project, and it's stored in a single folder on your PC. You might create a vault for your favorite hobby, and then create another vault for a college course you are taking, and yet still another vault for your personal matters. Each of these vaults is a separate entity, a separate project comprised of files and folders, and each one all stored in a single vault folder on your PC. The second term we need to define is note. A note is simply a document in an Obsidian vault. It can contain text, images, tables, and more. The note is the most important element in an Obsidian vault. Everything else in Obsidian is there to serve its notes. Third, we have Markdown. Markdown refers to the syntax or symbolic system that is used to format text in a note. Markdown is a form of inline code that formats text to appear a certain way, like bold or italic, for example. Finally, we have the term link. A link is a connection between 2 notes that allows you to jump from one note to another note. Obsidian's use of bidirectional links is arguably its most powerful feature. Running Obsidian for the very first time. The very first time you start Obsidian, you will be asked to create a vault, as shown in the image. This will be your first vault, but you can create more vaults at any time hence as you need them. Simply click the Create button to begin, and this will cause the next screen to appear. Here you will decide on a name for your vault and enter it in the text box. Then you'll choose a location on your PC where you want to store the Vaults folder. Once you've done both those things, click the Create button. At this point, your newly created Vault will open, and it will look something like what you see on screen. And this is the perfect opportunity to move on to the first topic in our list, the Obsidian User Interface, or UI. The Obsidian User Interface is where and how you will interact with Obsidian. It contains all the components, controls, and workspaces that collectively comprise Obsidian. This is a typical Obsidian user interface. As you can see, there's a lot going on here, and this is often why many people give up on Obsidian so soon. The user interface is just too overwhelming. They see lots of icons scattered all over the place with no idea what they mean or how to make use of them. But there's actually no reason to feel overwhelmed because out of all the stuff you see here, the only parts you need to know are the labeled parts and circled parts, which I will go over as we progress through the series. All the other stuff is intermediate level or advanced level stuff. It's definitely useful, but totally unnecessary in order to do basic work with Obsidian. There are 4 basic parts of the Obsidian user interface: the ribbon, the left side panel, the main or central work area, and the right side panel. Let's examine each of these, moving from left to right across the UI. I'll discuss each part first, and then I'll demonstrate them in an actual Vault. On the extreme left edge of the Obsidian user interface is the ribbon. It contains 8 icons near the top, each of which performs a particular operation. As a new user of Obsidian, only the very top icon and the second from the bottom one are of interest to us. The top icon simply collapses the left side panel in order to give you more room in the central work area. When you click it, the left side panel will fold away and you'll have more space in the central work area. If you click it again, the left side panel will reappear. The second from the bottom icon, the one that looks like a greater than symbol followed by an underscore character, opens the command palette, which is a listing of all the commands available in Obsidian. You can execute any of these commands by simply clicking on it in the list. You can also evoke the command palette by pressing the Ctrl and P keys on your keyboard. Immediately to the right of the ribbon is the left side panel, this area here. It is also sometimes referred to as the left sidebar. At the bottom of the left side panel, we see the Vault switcher. Clicking on the Vault switcher opens an interface that lets you open an existing Vault as well as manage your Vaults. Continuing on with the user interface, at the very top of the user interface above the left side panel, we see 3 icons. That's up here: Files, Search, and Bookmarks. Clicking on any one of these icons displays that particular function in the left side panel. Each of the 2 side panels on Obsidian, the left one and the right one, is multi-purpose. By clicking on an icon at the top of a panel, you display that icon's function in the side panel. So when you click on the Files icon, the left side panel becomes basically a file manager, similar to Windows File Manager. If you click on the Search icon, the search functionality appears in the left side panel, and so forth. Of those 3 icons above the left side panel, for a new Obsidian user, only the first icon is of importance. It makes the left side panel display Obsidian's File Manager. The Obsidian File Manager displays a hierarchical structure of the folders and files that are contained in the Vault. It looks and functions very much like Windows File Manager. Atop the File Manager panel, also sometimes called the Navigation panel, we see 5 icons. Only the first 2 of these are of interest to a new user. The first one creates a new note, and the second one creates a new folder. Okay, continuing on with the user interface, to the right of the left side panel is the main or central work area. That's this huge area in here. As its name implies, this is where you will do most of the actual work in your Vault. The vast majority of the time, this space will be occupied by 1 or more notes. Each note that is open in the central work area is represented by a tab associated with it at the very top of the work area. The note that you are working on, the one that has focus, is referred to as the active note. and its tab stands out. Let me now open an actual vault and demonstrate each of these components of the user interface. Okay, I'm in an actual vault now. We have the ribbon, the left side panel, the central work area, and the right side panel. As I mentioned a moment ago, of all the icons in the ribbon, the only two we need to know are the very top one, which collapses the left side panel and reopens it, and the next to the last one, which opens the command palette. Let me start with the top one. You can see a label pops up identifying the icon. In this case, it says collapse. If I click it, the left side panel collapses and it gives me more space in the central work area. There's a similar one over here on the right side that collapses the right side panel. When you click these again, you reopen the panels. The next to the bottom icon opens the command palette. That's the command palette. It lists every command available in Obsidian, and you can see there are many of them. If you click on any of these commands, you execute it. When you're looking for a particular command, you can either scroll through the list, or you can begin typing its name or a word or phrase associated with it up in this text box here. And Obsidian will narrow or filter the entire list to only commands that correspond to what you're typing. If I'm looking for the command that makes text bold, instead of scrolling through the list, I can type the word bold. And I'll get a list only of commands that have those letters in them. And the first one would be the one I want here, toggle bold. In other words, that toggles text bold or not bold. So again, either scroll through the list or begin typing a relevant word or phrase that corresponds to the command you're looking for to narrow the list down. And as I said, you can also evoke the command palette by pressing the Control and P keys on your keyboard. This is a very, very handy tool. Right, the next thing we saw was at the very bottom of the left side panel, we have what is called the Vault Switcher. This allows you to open your vaults and to manage them. If we click on it, we get a listing of all the vaults on our system that Obsidian is aware of. And if I click on any of these vault names, that vault will open. It will open as a separate instance of Obsidian. In other words, the vault that I have currently open will remain open. And the new vault that I click on here will open in another instance of Obsidian. So I'll have two vaults open at that time. It will not replace the vault that's open. It will open as a second instance of Obsidian. At the bottom of the list of vaults, you see Manage Vaults. And if we click that, we get the Vault Manager. This lets us create a new vault, open a folder as a vault on our system, work with some syncing, and it also gives us, again, the list of all the vaults on our computer. But in addition to the list of the vaults, it gives us the location, the storage location of each vault. And if we click on the three dots to the right of the vault title, we're able to perform some actions with these vaults. Reveal the vault in the System Explorer. In other words, it'll show us the exact location of that vault folder. I could rename the vault. I can move the vault to a different location. I can copy the vault's ID, or I can remove the vault from the list. If we select Remove from List, it only removes the vault from the list. It does not delete it from your computer. It simply removes it from this listing. So that's the Vault Manager. Again, this is the Vault Switcher at the bottom of the left side panel. Clicking on it once gives you a listing of all the vaults on your computer, and you can click on any of these vaults to open it. At the bottom, if you click Manage Vaults, you can create vaults, open folders as vaults, again, open existing vaults, and also perform some operations on those existing vaults. At the very, very top, above the left side panel, we have three icons. The first one says Files. That's the Obsidian File Manager. The second one says Search. And the third one says Bookmarks. As I mentioned earlier, the only one a new user should be interested in is the first one, the File Manager, which is open now. As I mentioned before, as you click on each one of these, the left side panel becomes dedicated to that particular function. So if I click the search icon, the left side panel now is dedicated to searching. If I click the bookmarks icon, the left side panel is dedicated to bookmarks. But again, as a new user, the only one we're interested in is the file manager. And as I said before, it's structured very much like Windows File Manager. You have folders and you have files. In most cases, the files will be notes. Associated with the file manager are 5 icons. And of these 5 icons, as I said earlier, only the first 2 are of interest to a new user. The first one creates a new note, and the second one creates a new folder. Let me demonstrate those now. First of all, let me make note of the fact that we have a note open right now in the central work area. It's untitled. I can give it a title by simply double-clicking the word untitled and typing in a title. When I hit the Enter key, this title that I typed into the note will appear as its title in the File Manager here. And you see that happened. And this tab represents this note. If I click the X on the tab, I close the note. Now there are no notes open available. I can create a new note by clicking here, but instead I'm going to use the icon at the top of the File Manager in the left side panel. When I click New Note, it creates a new note, again untitled, and I can give that note a title. And when I press Enter, that title will be reflected in the File Manager. Another way you can create a new note is to press the Control and N keys on the keyboard. I just did that, and you can see a new note was created. There's the note I just created a moment ago. This is the note that was created by me pressing Control and N on the keyboard. In a similar manner, if you click this second icon at the top of the File Manager in the left side panel, you can create a new folder. Folders are differentiated from files by their position in the hierarchy. In other words, you can see the files are indented when they're in a folder. And also by the presence of this V symbol, which lets you collapse or open that folder so you can see its contents. So this folder, folder 1, has 3 notes within it. I can collapse it or open it. Folder 2 has 2 notes. These notes exist outside those folders. If I want to create a new folder, I simply click the new folder icon at the top of the File Manager, and I get a new folder. Again, you can see the symbol to collapse it, indicating it's a folder. Now here I have to give the title here. This is a note that's untitled. This is the folder. So I'm going to call it folder 3. And press Enter. And now I've created a new folder. Now these notes here are not in this folder. They're not indented as these are. If I want to move one of these notes into the folder, I can click on it and drag it into the folder. Now when I open folder 3, I see that note sample is in that folder. And likewise, I can drag it out if I want to. So to review, in the left side panel, there are 3 different functions that can be displayed in the left side panel: the File Manager, the Search feature, and the bookmarks. A new user is only interested in the File Manager. Search and bookmarks are more advanced topics that you can learn later. And as we see, the File Manager is structured very much like Windows File Manager. There are folders, there are files, and you can have files in the folders or files outside the folders. Those files are notes primarily. They can be other things. They can be images, they can be PDFs, they can be videos. But for now, we'll keep it simple and stick to notes. You can create a new note by clicking this first icon at the top of the File Manager, and you can create a new folder by clicking the second icon. At this point, we're not interested in these 3 icons. So as I said in the introduction to the series, of all the many, many, many things in Obsidian, a new user is only interested in a very, very small handful. And those are the things I'm going over in this series. In the ribbon, we were only interested in collapsing the left panel and in evoking the command palette. In the left side panel, the only thing we're interested in is the File Manager. And within the file manager, the only thing we're interested in is creating a new note and creating a new folder. All of those other things are as you get deeper into Obsidian and become more advanced. And then at the bottom, the vault switcher, which lets you open other vaults and manage your vaults. Okay, as we discussed earlier, we have to the right of the left side panel, we have the central work area. This is where you will do most of your work. This is where your notes are displayed. If I click on a note in the file manager, that note becomes the active note in the central work area. And I can type text in the note. As I mentioned earlier, each note that's open is represented by a tab at the top of the central work area. The active note stands out, as you can see. If I click on the tab of another note, that note becomes the active note. I can create a new note by clicking the Create New Note icon atop the file manager in the left side panel, or by pressing Ctrl and N on the keyboard, as I demonstrated earlier, or by clicking this plus sign up in the tabs area. That gives me the option to create a new note, go to a file, see recent files. If I click Create New Note, I've created another note here. And Obsidian begins to sequentially number the untitled notes until we give them titles. You can give the note the title in the note title itself, as I showed earlier. Let's call this one Note 1. Or you can right-click on a note in the file manager and select Rename, and rename it right in the file manager. I'll call this Note 2. If I click on Note 2 in the file manager, it will become the active note in the central work area, as you can see. Now notice when I right-click on a note in the file manager, I can do a lot of things here. The ones you'll be interested in as a new Obsidian user are the ones at the bottom, renaming the note or deleting it. The other ones are a little bit more advanced. If I select Delete, it will ask me to confirm that I want to delete that note, and I can either cancel out or actually delete the note. I'm not going to say any more about notes right now. The next video in this series is devoted exclusively to notes, so I won't go into it here. Suffice it to say, as I said in the introduction, the note is the most important element in an Obsidian vault, and everything else in Obsidian is there to serve its notes. Okay, continuing on with the user interface, in the upper right corner of the work area, we see two icons, of which only the first one is of interest to us. This icon toggles the work area between reading view and editing view. You can see as I hover over it, it says Current View Editing, click to read, meaning click it to go to reading view. In editing view, you can make changes in the note in the work area. You can add text or other content, you can delete things, you can edit things, and so forth. In reading view, you cannot add, delete, or edit anything. All you can do is read the note. Again, I will go into this in greater detail in the videos of this series that deal with notes in Markdown. For now, let me simply say that editing a note's content sometimes involves using Markdown, which, as I defined in the introduction, is a coding system for formatting text in a note. When the work area is in editing view, the Markdown code becomes visible if the cursor is on formatted text. This can make reading the note's content awkward. Reading view hides the Markdown code, allowing you to read the note unhindered by confusing, messy code. It is entirely possible to read a note just fine while in editing view, but reading view offers the cleanest reading experience. Most Obsidian users spend the vast majority of their time in editing view, since you can both edit and read while in this view. The icon with the three dots directly next to the reading editing view icon offers a long list of options, all of which can be ignored by a brand new user. So don't worry about all these now. Above the three dots is an icon to collapse the right side panel, as I demonstrated earlier. And finally, to the right of the central work area, we have the right side panel. As with the left side panel, we have icons at the very top that determine what is displayed in the right side panel. In other words, what function it will represent. And then, depending upon which feature is displayed there, we'll see further icons within the right side panel that offer options specific to that particular feature. These icons at the top represent the various functions that can be presented in the right side panel. And once you select one of them, you'll have particular icons that represent particular features for that function. This first one is for backlinks. The second one is for outgoing links, tags, and so forth. In my own personal opinion, there is no need for a new user of Obsidian to use the right side panel at all. Yes, there are many useful things available there, but none of them are of critical importance to a new user. Once you are comfortable and confident doing the basic things in Obsidian, you can then progress on to an exploration of these other features. And that's it for the Obsidian User Interface. Let's put this all in perspective by reviewing what we've just learned. So, of all the zillions of things available in the Obsidian User Interface, the only things a new user needs to learn are the ones labeled and circled in the diagram. In the ribbon, you only need to use the icon that collapses the left side panel up at the top, and the icon that opens the command palette. And you can actually open the command palette by pressing the Control and P keys on your keyboard, so you don't even need to use this icon. In the left side panel, you only need to use the File Manager panel. You can ignore these other two for now. And within the File Manager, you only need to know how to create new notes and create new folders. In other words, you're only concerned with these two icons. At the bottom of the left side panel, you have your Vault switcher, which, once opened, is self-explanatory. As we saw, when you click on it, you get a list of all your vaults, and you can click on a vault to open it. At the bottom of that list is the option to manage your vaults, and if you click on that, you get the Vault Manager, which lets you again open vaults, but also perform some other operations on them as well. In the central work area, you will work with your notes, most of which will involve entering text. As I mentioned, I'll cover notes in greater detail in the next video in the series. Then there's Reading View and Editing View. Again, self-explanatory. Use Editing View when you need to edit a note. Reading View is entirely optional, only useful if you want a clean reading experience. And then there's the right side panel, which in my opinion can be ignored by new Obsidian users. So out of that overwhelming mess of countless options, a new Obsidian user need only be concerned with 6 things. Not very intimidating at all once you know what to focus on and what to put off until you are more experienced. In the next video of this series, we'll cover the heart of an Obsidian project, notes and Markdown. For now, that's all I have, fellow Obsidian users. I'll see you in the next video, which is part 2 of this series. Happy note-taking.